Okay, in this session, we'll be covering Buddha's Brain, Chapter 1. And before I say anything, I just want to open it up to any comments someone has to say about the reading. Was there anything that struck you? Was there anything you didn't understand? Does anybody want to say anything about it? And go ahead and either start, well, no one's muted, so go ahead and just say what you'd like to say. If someone has something to say, just speak up. And if no one wants to say anything, that's okay too.
It certainly sounded like things we just discussed, chapter 1, things that we'd always been discussing, slightly different words, virtue, mindfulness was the same, and wisdom, kind of the summary of his 3 principles. And the one thing that I can't remember if it's Buddha's teaching or whatever, but by practicing, you become better, if you know what I mean. In other words, well, yeah, and it just makes sense. In other words, you can just sit and listen to the words, but you've actually got to go and put them into action. And I tried a little bit of that, and I found, interestingly, that it really worked. That I had some annoying things that I was doing, and I, in terms of being distracted in my mind, and I shut them down. And it's been a positive. So I kind of like that. So it's.
May I? Oh, sorry.
So, but I like to daydream, and I've cut out some of that. I still do it, but I've now more focused.
Okay. John, thanks. Anybody want to say something to that?
I agree with John 100%. I consider the chapter 1 as an introduction, greatly written. And now I am hoping, because they are giving us chapter 3, we will learn this, chapter 7, something else. So I hope that we will really, due to this book, practice these things and learn how to do it and improve our mindfulness, improve our ability to improve ourselves.
Okay. Anyone else want to say something? Feel free. I want to pick up on something about the book that John said. John's absolutely right, where this is very similar to what we've been doing before. It's about mindfulness and Buddhism. What I find different about this book and found interesting is that he talks about your mind changing your brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed one of the weeks in December because I was on a 10-day silent retreat where I wound up meditating for at least 6 hours, between 6 and 8 hours every day for 10 days. And another comment John made that I saw in my experience at the retreat is, and I've talked to you about it, part of why I am interested in meditation, and John mentioned it, is there's these thoughts go in your head, and you like to press a button and stop them. And what I saw when I did enough meditation, the frequency and intensity dropped down. And part of the rumination and the thought process is a physiological response. And maybe later in the book, but essentially you have this rut your mind is going through. The neurons that fire together, wire together. I've got the quote wrong, but you start doing something over and over again, and your mind gets in that habit pattern. It's hard to break that neural network. And meditation seems to slowly do it. And if I was doing 8 hours a day for 10 days and there's a little bit of increase, it didn't stop it altogether. It takes a long time of many hours frequently, but you actually change that thought pattern. And I would describe it as changing your disposition. Some people get really upset really quickly, they fire. Some people never get upset. And over time, I think this practice will help you be less reactive. Any other comments? And if you don't have anything to say, that's fine. Okay. There's one thing he said, and I'm going to quote it in the book and then raise the question. Our main focus will be on positive well-being, psychological growth, and spiritual practice. For thousands of years, contemplatives, the Olympic athletes of mental training, have studied the mind. In this book, we'll take the contemplative tradition we know best, Buddhism, and apply it to the brain to reveal neural pathways to happiness, love, and wisdom. And the next slide, I have something about what I see as a spiritual practice, but I like to open up and it says, what is a spiritual practice to you? And this is, and when he used that word spiritual practice, I have an idea what he meant, and I've got on the next page, but what is a spiritual practice to you? And if you don't have anything to say, that's fine. But
I mean, I think of things like respecting the environment and things like meditation, where you go out and stare at the sky outside and just take it in and just enjoy it for what it is and for whatever it means, whatever meaning it brings to you. That's to me spiritual practices that I might indulge in.
well, those are good. One of the things I think you had that I don't is meaning in life. Spiritual practice gives you your life meaning, can give you meaning. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? And the other thing that you brought out, and I agree with it, it's an ethical behavior. Being kind to the environment, to everyone. Any other comments?
Well, I think the highest spiritual practice, in my opinion, is communicating with God, worshiping Him, and communicating with Him.
Okay. And Carol, I think that's normally the first thing that people think of with a spiritual
prayer. Prayer is the major spiritual practice that I do. But I understand John's point about being outdoors, because that's where you see God's creation, them up close and personal.
Any other comments? Before I go for my list, one of the things that was said right at the beginning of the retreat and was repeated throughout the retreat is they didn't use the word spiritual practice, but essentially ethical behavior. If you want to be happy, be ethical. And part of spirituality is ethical behavior. I think with part of it is also like, I in a broader sense, you know, there are things bigger than us. There's a whole world out there. There's, you know, there's something really powerful, nature, God, that we need to respect. But if you're on the journey to happiness, it is not likely you'll find it when you rob, cheat, lie, and steal. And you want to do the things that keep you ethical. And each one of the things that I'm going to show up next are part of that. And everything that everyone else said is also, anything that I don't have on my list, whatever you've said is also valid. Compassion. Unconditional compassion for all sentient beings. Now, and I want to point out something. I didn't say unconditional love for all sentient beings. And it may be what a spiritual should be, unconditional love for all sentient beings. And it may be, and I may have difficulty, I would have difficulty doing that. But unconditional compassion is, there are some people in the world that I don't think are very good role models. They're negative role models, in my opinion. But I still can have compassion for the people that I think the least of, because when they're suffering, when they're behaving poorly, it's because they're wounded. And I can hope that their wounds go away, really hope that their wounds go away so that they don't do damage. So I think in all cases, I can have compassion with them. Not in all cases do I agree with them. Not all cases do I love them. But in all cases, you know, if I were on a spiritual journey, it'd be nice that I could really have unconditional compassion for everybody. Not agreeing with them, not loving them, not doing what they tell me, not stopping me from speaking up when they do things that bother me, but just feel bad for them. And the people that are closest to me that I have difficulty with, I know what their wounds were that caused it. Wisdom is part of the spiritual practice, you know, understanding the implication of our actions. And, you know, who we are, we have a personal responsibility for ethical behavior, and that's part of a spiritual journey. And humility, we're not the center of the universe. If you go too far, me, it's not good. And if you go too far being a mat for everybody around you, you're not. And I think it takes this wisdom to find the balance of self-compassion and compassion for others. And when I've seen difficult situations, if I'm reactive, it's always not out of compassion to others. It's always in self-defense. But when I can have the mindfulness or presence and awareness to see what's going on, and I can think, I always try and find some middle way where I'm respectful to the other and respectful for myself, and finding that middle path. And I'll break here now. Is there anybody who has something that they like to say in response to this? But all right. One of the things that got mentioned, let me see. There was a quote from the book, "The brain evolved to help you survive, but its 3 primary survival strategies also make you suffer." To me, if someone would like to handle what are our survival strategies? What do you think he was talking about? Because I read that and I had to reread the book before I figured out what they were. But what it's essentially saying is our instinctive reactions to things usually hurt us. And what do our instincts tell us, and what are the survival strategies? And if anybody wants to try, it's a hard question. I'll go on.
Well,
Go ahead, John.
I mean, the one obvious thing, a survival strategy, is you've got to take care of yourself, only. I mean, that's got to be the highest priority, and everything else doesn't count. If this truly is a survival episode where you're threatened,
Right.
and obviously it works well at the moment, but then, I mean, if what ended up happening is you lost everybody else, you really wouldn't be in a good place. In other words, you'd be left alone. And that is a terrible longer term strategy. And, that's what occurs to me.
There's a term in Buddhism, the middle way, and there's a quote. This is from Jewish tradition. If I'm only for myself, what am I? If I'm not for myself, who will be? If not now, when? It's this discernment of finding that middle way, and survival. If you watch out for yourself too much, and only me, it becomes a problem. But John, that's good. Yeah. Carol?
I was just thinking, initial response, how it can be fight or flight. And neither of those are really in human relationships. It's not good to turn on someone and try to battle them, but it's also not good to, flee away from them and just, go into a cocoon and say, well, I just won't deal with the situation. So fight or flight is not a good survival. Maybe it's good for physical survival, but it's not good for the kind of happiness that we're talking about achieving.
Yeah, Carol, that sounds spot on. That's right. And we can, one of the things I see in the contemplative meditation practices, you begin to see when you're triggered for fight or flight, and at least have a pause and see if you can find a better strategy. And you get the wisdom. It's part of a spiritual journey. Okay, then I went to, he used the word survival strategy. I went to what he wrote and what he listed. One second, I want to take the phone off the hook so we don't get any phone calls. And John, what you said about creating separate, identifying ourselves with our family, tribe, and country. Well, I mean, some of us just identify with ourselves, which is even a word, which is what you had said. So, but identify ourselves with our family, tribe, and country, independent. So we see separations, and you're going to do more for yourself more than anybody else. Your family next, your tribe next, your country, and it goes up that. And a broader sense of compassion to a broader group of people might serve the world better. Maintaining stability. We don't want anything to change. We don't want cold weather. We don't want floods. And when we do, we want it. We not want anything to change. When it doesn't, it triggers us. It gets us angry. It gets us upset when things aren't stable. And there are two approaching opportunities and avoiding threats. Desires. Well, certainly desire in the way that we use it normally can lead people into trouble. They'll do things that they shouldn't do, all levels of the wrong things to do, because they're smitten. If you fall in love and you have that desire, you know, you may not be thinking rationally. So desire drives you. Desire for food can get you in trouble. And then so we have a desire, and then aversion. You know, we're afraid of threats. We can try and run from them, but it makes us upset and wish they weren't there. So it essentially is these survival strategies, we're interdependent, and we want to be and care only about ourselves. Things are always changing, and life is difficult. We can't always get the things we want. Sometimes we get things that we want, we can't get rid of them. How do we change our brain? And there were 3 strategies in Buddhism of virtue, mindfulness, also called concentration, and wisdom. And what can happen, and particularly why meditation is the focus of Buddhism, is when you meditate and you're just sitting and trying to watch your breath, the education comes when you're not good at that and your mind keeps wandering, and when you notice the things that your mind does. So mindfulness, when you're trying to concentrate, keep your mind focused on something, you'll see the distractions your mind brings up, and then you look at, why did I think that? Is that thought helpful? You can grow from watching what your mind does and understanding what is driving you. So these are the 3 things that are fundamental in his practice. One more thing I want to say, and I'm sure it'll come later in the book, is the fact that a practice like gratitude that I've been doing at the end of almost every meditation, guided meditation I have. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And when I notice that I'm in a dark place, I start saying thank you. I remember what's going well in my life. And then that energy goes away and I can really be more constructive. And virtue involves regulating your actions, words, and thoughts to create benefits rather than harms for yourself and others. But you can't do that unless you have mindfulness and you're aware of what's going on. And be aware of what's going on in your mind and in the outer world. And then wisdom is applied common sense, which you acquire in 2 steps. First, you come to understand what hurts and what helps. In other words, the cause of suffering and the path to its end, which he'll cover in chapters 2 and 3. Then based on this understanding, you let go of these things that hurt and strengthen those that help. Now let me stop here. Is there any comments or questions? Okay, what I'd like to do right now then is take you through a guided meditation. And you'll have a chance to see the monkey mind, the ability to focus. For sure, if there are no questions, let's go ahead. And let me go ahead and just stop the recording. No, I'll go ahead and add the guided meditation here. Find a comfortable position. Meditate whatever you're used to doing. And if you like to, you can lie down Sit in the lotus position. Or what most of the people in this group do is just sit in a chair, feet flat on the ground, back straight. And stage one of this, first practice, is to just start breathing in and counting from 1 to 3 as you breathe in and breathe out, counting 1 to 3. And as you feel comfortable, you may want to increase the count. Slowly increase the count until you feel strained or until you reach the count of 10. But the counting distracts the thinking mind and stops the rumination. The long, slow breath triggers the relaxation response. And if you do this for 3 to 5 minutes, you should begin to relax, feel calm, and have a sense of well-being. Now what I'd like you to do is breathe in and out through your nostrils and focus your attention on the felt sense of the breath. Continue to count to 10. Continue to breathe deeply, but also experience the felt sense of the breath. Now stop the counting. Continue to breathe long, slow, and deep. And really pay attention to the felt sense of the breath. And if for some reason you have trouble stopping the counting and you feel you need to do it, that's okay. But if you can let go of the counting, do it. Really pay attention. Do you really feel the air going through the nostrils? Is it nearer to your eyebrows or nearer to the tip of your nose? Where is the sensation? Is there more air going in through the right nostril or the left nostril? Is the air hot or cold going in, hot or cold going out? Pay attention. And now stop controlling the breath. Breathe normally. And see if you can still get the felt sense of the breath, even though you're not breathing as deeply. Eventually, there'll be a wave of experience. Could be a thought or emotion. When that happens, just bring your attention back to your breath, gently, kindly. Minds always wander. It's wisdom you will gain by watching your breath, to see the monkey mind, to see the thoughts and emotions that arise. But just let them disappear and bring your attention back to your breath. Now, focus your attention on the skin between the upper lip and your nostrils. See if you can feel anything there. Spend a minute or two trying to do that. If you can find a sensation there, fine. If not, after a couple minutes, go back to focusing on the nostril. But it's a sign of deep concentration and relaxation when you can actually just feel the air underneath the nostrils and above the lips. If you start to feel drowsy, feel free to stand up or to breathe deeply to give yourself energy. Meditation is relaxing. It can put you to sleep. Now, what we've just done is watching the breath. It's a focus and concentration method. There's another relaxation method of the body scan, and I'll guide you through that. Focus on your forehead. Feel the sensations in your forehead. Try and relax the forehead. Totally concentrate on just your forehead. Same thing with your eyebrows. Focus on your eyebrows. Relax your eyebrows. Notice the sensation in your eyebrows. And for all the parts of the body I mentioned next, focus on them, relax them, and notice the felt sensation. Eyelids. Nostrils. Shoulders. Biceps. Elbows. Forearm. Wrist. Palms of your hands. The backs of your hands. And now we'll stop the body scan. Smile and repeat to yourself, thank you, thank you, thank you. And see what things you think about as you say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. You may want to think about all the people that helped you and that you're grateful to. You may want to think about all the things that you have. Ability to hear or to see or to walk. You may want to be thankful about the abundance of nature. And when you're ready, allow yourself to stretch out
You want to put your hands over your head. Stretch out in any way you want. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. And I'll put the video up and send you a link to it later, and also send you the PowerPoint presentations. Again, thanks for your presence. Have a wonderful week. And the next class will be January 11th, the second Wednesday in January. Thank you.